to farmers. You called for. Now, as we reported earlier on NTV 11, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has updated the latest state of food security across Uganda as famine spreads across the Horn of Africa. So in our interview tonight, we focus our attention on some of the significant issues concerning food security in Uganda, such as the rising commodity prices and pockets of chronic food insecurity in some northern Ugandan regions. Joining me tonight to analyze the latest situation and propose preventative measures to these issues is Agnes Chirabo, the coordinator of Food Rights Alliance. Agnes, we're glad to have you back here on NTV 11.
Glad to be with you again.
Please do not be tired to join us whenever we ask you to, because you have a lot of information we need to share with the general public. Now, the latest food security situation across Uganda, according to the latest FAO report, suggests that there are pockets of chronic food insecurity, close to 600,000 people moderately food insecure. That's what they're saying, in Acholi and the Karamoja regions of northern Uganda, where there's a latter wetter season. We have outbreaks of animal disease, correct functioning of livestock markets in northeastern districts. And there is also concern at the rising commodity prices, especially sugar and maize. This is all contained in the report. Is this exactly what you share?
I just wonder, when do issues become issues?
After reports have been made.
After FAO has made a report. Well, one, I commend FAO for the effort rendered. And I need to remind the Ugandans that besides FAO, with or without FAO, we have a sitting government, which is responsible, has a duty and an obligation to ensure that all the 33 million Ugandans have access to adequate food for their health, well-being, all means of its procurement. Ugandans must know that. So what FAO is doing is what the likes of the Vedicos of this world and others are doing to supplement on what government has done. What is annoying, though, is supplementing what is not there. Two, reference to those statistics by FAO, also Ugandans need to know that it is easier to collect data in rural areas, but you don't know how many Ugandans are sleeping hungry in the slums around Kampala and the other urban areas. And for such factors like what FAO has put across, do not directly apply, only that the consequences, if they do apply in these outskirts of this country, then they do affect the poor of this country. I also need Ugandans to know that we have to appreciate collectively this whole problem and know that the most extreme form of poverty any other household or a country can face is failure to feed yourself. And that is that. So for me, whether FAO came up with the report or not, so long as we have a sitting government, we shall continue to demand and demand. And lastly on that, Maurice.
Yes, quickly.
There is a great thinking that central Uganda is okay.
Yes,
you don't
in
know
their report, actually, they say...
You just don't know the amount of hunger that is eating out central region.
Yes, Agnes, let me just say what they're saying here about the central. They're saying central and southern regions, they are actually describing the food security situation as generally stable, but say there is need for urgent measures to implement, say, improve and stabilize the levels of food security.
Agreed, but all what we have to...
Would you agree with stable?
What we have
they
to...
say stable?
I basically don't want to agree, but we also have to appreciate the state and circumstances under which these studies are being conducted. And what is also greatly important and must be appreciated, that whether there are pockets of food insecurity or to households, there is a livelihood being lost. And there is a life being lost.
Let's discuss the interventions government came up with last week in their Thursday meeting at State House, where there was 10 enterprises cited. One was fish farming, tea planting, fruit processing, among others, to increase production and value addition to improve food security. But also that these enterprises were listed in such, there were also enterprises that were listed to support the 10 enterprises, these were interventions to support the enterprises, and these were such as storage facilities, soft loans for farmers, and farmers information guide, among others. Are these the solutions? Is this enough?
One, I wish to commend the government for having put aside resources, including time, to put food issues on the agenda. I need to commend that effort. But I was also a bit disappointed with that meeting because at the end of the day, it turned out to be a sugar conference. And I was so disappointed because to many Ugandans, sugar is a luxury. And what happened to my mind is when do issues become issues?
Surely,
is it when sugar that affects the minority or the smallest proportion of this population faces challenges that it becomes an issue? When weeks and months back, the basic food commodity like maize flour hit 2,500, too high.
But Agnes, you can't run away from the fact that they did address some of the issues you and others had raised during the week about food security, whether it was food storage, farmer information guide. You spoke about giving farmers some money. You know, these were concerns that were brought up in that meeting. You can't say it was just about sugar.
It is okay that they got on paper, but what we need to investigate and interrogate more is how are we taking the practice? Because the decision on sugar, the practice was open and common and it can be done the next day. Then these ones, Maurice, convinced me how, was the how put right? Was it put clear that this is how we are going to do it? And if we don't get the how right, then that means there are going to be remained proposals on paper. And that is where my biggest concern is. Right. And then secondly, Maurice, yes, we need short-term interventions of food insecurity now and then the long term. Thirdly, you can't plan for storage of food you have not planned for in production. You know that agriculture and farmers generally in this country are so widely scattered, and actually many people always comment they are disorganized.
Okay.
So how are you going to plan for storage overproduction that you have not planned for?
Thanks, Agnes. I know we would go on and on here, Agnes. Thank you so much for your time. We've been speaking to Agnes Chiraba, who is the coordinator for Food Rights Alliance. And we were speaking about the latest findings by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, an update on the latest state of food security across Uganda as famine spreads across the Horn of Africa. Let's take a quick look at Wednesday's weather forecast.